Hoosier Nation, your men's basketball team is 2-0, and they're crushing everyone in their path. And they're up to number 12 in the country, according to the most recent release of the top 25. Lots to be excited about with Mike Woodson's squad. And we have our first massive non conference matchup coming up on Friday. We're going to dive into everything you need to know about Indiana Xavier on Friday night, recap how the Hoosiers did against Bethune-Cookman, and so much more here on episode 272 of the Hoosier Sound. We're the official podcast of Indiana HQ. We're recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on Monday, November 14th, 2022. I'm your host, Nathan Krishnan. Here with me tonight are my normal co-hosts, Matt Lukens and Charlie Mason. Charlie, let's talk a little football first, though. Since we last talked, Indiana's continued this losing streak that they're on. That victory over Illinois seems many, many moons ago. Indiana lost to Ohio State 56-14. You were there, boots on the ground for us in snowy Columbus. No one expected Indiana to beat Ohio State. However, looking at our social media, there are a lot of Hoosier fans justifiably frustrated that Indiana's defense looked completely incapable of stopping Ohio State. Meanwhile, quarterback Dexter Williams, who did not start, flashed a little bit against one of college football's best teams. Charlie, let's start with Dexter Williams. He's someone who stepped in, led a couple of touchdown drives. You've seen him in person. You've seen Connor Bazelak in person. What do you think Dexter Williams has been able to bring to this Indiana offense thus far here in limited playing time?
I think that over Bazelak, the first thing he brings to the table is the willingness to run, which I think is important. And any quarterback needs to be able to run. Bazelak has shown bits and pieces of a breakaway run on a third down when there's no other option, like late in the fourth quarter. But what's interesting about Williams is that one of the first plays he was out there, he broke away for a 15, 20-yard run, got some IU fans in the crowd on their feet, silenced the horseshoe. That was the craziest part about his performance, is he came out on the field, threw a 49-yard pass to Anderson Kobe, and basically jump-started IU, even though they were losing 21-0, which you wouldn't think would excite anybody very much, but there was some momentum there for a little while. Dexter Williams going into the half looked like a superstar, even though IU was getting crushed. I don't know how you're able to pull that off. If you're Dexter Williams, you're feeling pretty confident about starting next week too. Tom Allen kind of hinted towards that in the press conference. He was like, yeah, well, Dexter's working. I liked what I saw from him. And he's got to talk with his staff. But currently, Dexter Williams is the quarterback for IU. And I think that comes from his running ability. Obviously, he's not afraid to show the deep ball. And Bazelak also has an arm. We saw that early on in the season, in the only couple of wins. But Dexter Williams, his athleticism, and his game time decision making when it comes to pulling that ball away or deciding to break free on a run. It's just little things like that get you 6, 7, 8 yards that IU didn't have before. So I'm excited to see how he fares up against beaten up Michigan State.
Yeah, let's let's all reenact this conversation that Tom Allen's going to have with his coaches this week about whether Dexter Williams or not should start. All right, I'm going to be Tom Allen. You guys can be the assistants. All right, everyone. Who should we start at quarterback on Saturday against Michigan State?
Jack Tuttle.
Dexter Williams.
Damn it, man. You're not on the staff anymore. Look, make no mistake about it, right? The electricity Dexter Williams showed, outstanding. Remember, this was a 3-star quarterback prospect that Allen and his staff recruited from the class of 2019, came off of knee surgery after an ACL injury, and really did pop against the Buckeyes. I mean, Matt, I think the question Indiana fans are asking is, why didn't this guy get the call from the start of the season? I mean, Bazelak, I guess, had an SEC pedigree, but unless I'm missing something, Williams has showed a lot here against two really, really good defenses in Penn State and Ohio State.
The staff, again, confuses me to the nth degree. They find new ways to make me dumbfounded at their decision making. I think from the start of the year, from the beginning of the year after the first game, even though we won against Illinois, Bazelak wasn't impressive in that game. If you remember, he led the game-winning drive, but for 45, 50 minutes of that game was extremely unimpressive.
Yeah.
And so, again, we said, why isn't somebody who's more mobile getting a shot behind this offensive line? Again, you need somebody to kind of escape, extend plays, and Bazelak showed, and especially in his first game and the games following, he was not that guy. So Bazelak goes out with an injury, and who do they put in? They put in Jack Tuttle, who does the same thing as Connor Bazelak, and I love Jack Tuttle, but he's not Dexter Williams. And then Dexter Williams comes in against Ohio State, who arguably is the best defense that we've played, and starts to look decent.
Yeah.
And my question to you guys is, I know a lot of people have probably given up on watching, the games this season.
Not really, Matt. I mean, you look, Indiana HQ is buzzing on Saturday. People pay attention to this team, as apathetic as the narrative is.
Yeah, okay.
People
yes.
tune in because they've seen Indiana compete against Ohio State before and Penn State before, and certain guys have had big games. Xavier had like an 80-yard touchdown run one year. Like, that's the moment you tune into the game for, and Dexter Williams gave it to you.
Right, and he did. And the point about that is everybody watching the game and everybody online. I mean, if we'd done a Twitter poll after the first game, I think Dexter Williams, like, who would you want, starting at QB next game? Dexter Williams would have won. So my question is, how do the fans know what the solutions are before the coaching staff does?
Yeah, I think my first.
It's like it's been since game 2 that fans are like, maybe we should give Dexter Williams a shot. Like, I don't know. Maybe the offensive line looks really bad. Maybe we should give somebody more mobile a shot. I swear to God, I've been seeing it since game 2. It is game, 9?
Yeah,
10?
Yeah, 10 in the books.
And he finally gets a shot. Like, it's 8 games too late. It was honestly, it's 10 games too late. And again, for the future of the program, it's good that he's finally getting playing time. But unless the staff wants to come out and cover up their tracks, I'll give them the response, by the way. If they want to cover their tracks, just give them the response of, we were wanting to redshirt him this year. Because then I understand it, right? Then I go, okay, that makes sense. Whatever. There's your PR, IU hire me. Because, like, what was the thought process to having this guy on your bench and not playing him at all, not even giving him a run, not even letting him sneak near starting until you had 2 quarterbacks out and you're like, oh, I guess we have to play him now. And then he looks good. So again, what does he not play like this in practice? Maybe not.
It is true. That was mentioned by Tom Allen.
Does he not?
A practice guy, but I don't know.
But, like, at the same time, it's like, you got to try what you have. Like, this dude came in, you knew he was a gamer. You got to try something. Just something. Try something, please.
Yeah, and your redshirt theory doesn't hold up. He's already redshirted. And so
exactly.
So that doesn't
there we
work.
go.
My one hypothesis is and it would help Indiana staff to be transparent about this too. If there was some kind of promise made to Bazelak in the transfer portal that, hey, look, if you come to Indiana, you get the starting job. And unless you're injured, we keep you on the field. And I know that may be distasteful to some, but if you at least come forth and admit that, if it's true, I at least have a rationale for this decision, because Dexter Williams has looked outstanding. And Williams, while he has thrown some incomplete passes and while the accuracy's been a bit off, remember, he's extremely raw. Right, this is his first go at it as college football quarterback, and he's doing this against 2 elite defenses in Penn State and Ohio State. He's your guy, and he's fought through the problems, and he's been here when the program's been successful, and for some reason he didn't get a chance. That's very surprising to me, and it's strange to me that Nick Sheridan, the previous offensive coordinator, and now Walt Bell, the current one, didn't see it in Dexter Williams, especially behind a shaky, ineffective offensive line that was put together by Darren Hiller and now in the responsibility of Rod Carey. I think Dexter Williams has to be the guy the rest of the season. Charlie, my question to you is, does Dexter Williams have staying power here? Brendan Sorsby got some time against Penn State. We know Connor Bazelak still has eligibility, but if Dexter Williams puts together 2 games like he did against Penn State and Ohio State to end the season, does he go in as QB1? Should he go in as QB1 going into the 2023 season?
There's no question in my mind that he should.
Because you've seen it. You've been there.
Yeah. If he finishes these next 2 games, I think you got to have a win in one of them. Purdue is a great team. We saw them beat Illinois. I mean, so did Indiana, so whatever. But they're a good team. If you can come out on top, maybe not with a win, but with, I don't know, like 100 rushing yards. Like if Dexter Williams is 100 rushing yards, throws for 2 touchdowns in both games, just shows that he's a competent quarterback. I think that Tom Allen he's sounding more and more burnt out in these press conferences. He's tired. When he answers questions about the quarterback, he's kind of like, yeah, we put Dexter Williams in. That's what we did. And guess what? It wasn't a terrible decision. Should we have been doing it? I don't know, but it was. That's kind of the attitude I'm getting from Tom Allen. And when I talked to Dexter Williams after the game, he was in that press room. He was so upset with how he played. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what you want to hear from a player. That's your quarterback. That's a redshirt sophomore. He was upset, and he understood that he didn't have the consistency of a high-level quarterback, that he played a great team, and that he did make mistakes, which is extremely mature for a player that is getting his first snaps in week 9, week 10 of a losing season. So I think that Dexter Williams, obviously depending on how well he does in these next 2 games, but I foresee some great play from him. I mean, against teams that don't really have incredible defenses, I think he can show up. So I think that Dexter Williams is the guy for next season.
Yeah, and I mean, it's incredible to hear that kind of tone from Williams, given he was really the breath of fresh air in that game. I wonder if he's uncomfortable with, look, hey, if I don't really show out, I'm not going to get reps with this staff this year. And so he finally got some time on the field. Matt, I think my question to you is this. Indiana's 3-7, bowl eligibility out the door, at Michigan State first coming up on Saturday, home Purdue to end the season. The defense was atrocious against Ohio State. It's been a disaster all season. 2 games left. Do these games matter for Tom Allen, Walt Bell, and Chad Wilt's job security? The buyout situation is very rough with Tom Allen, but after December 1st, if he chooses to take another job, and the South Florida job, which is the one everyone's discussing, the financial burden is less really for both parties. So 2 games, Indiana's not going to fire Tom Allen, but job security wise, for those 3 figures, how critical is it going forward?
Extremely critical. Yeah. Like if they can't figure out how to beat one of these teams, as a staff, like I honestly think they're out the door. Like Michigan State's kind of lifeless. Yeah, they beat Illinois, but they really they play up or down to their competition, and they have one of the worst secondaries in the country. Yeah. So it's like if you're an offensive staff and you can't figure out ways to succeed against Michigan State, like you got some issues. And then against Purdue, it's like a rival, and you have them at home, and it's kind of like you gotta put something out on the field. You gotta put up some fight. Like if both those games end up like the Ohio State game and it's out of control and 21-0, like I don't see any reason why the staff should be sticking around. They had the 2 great seasons, and everybody's gonna be, but they had 2 great seasons, and Indiana doesn't have those. It's like, well, they've had 2 deplorable seasons, succeeding that, and that just shows me that they weren't able to capture the momentum, and something's gone wrong. And the thing that went wrong, honestly, is you lost the 2 people that really helped you get to those 2 seasons. You lost Penix and you lost DeBoer, who both are at Washington and are on a top 15 team now. Just beat Oregon. Like they were special. South Alabama, by the way. South
Also,
Alabama, where
Kane Womack,
left to go get a head coach, is getting votes for the top 25.
and
right?
he's done an exceptional job in 2 years there. Last year, this year, he's done awesome at South Alabama.
By the way, if Tom Allen were to leave, he would be on my short list of people to get the IU job. And so, again, I'm sitting here kind of like, what is the point of the staff sticking around? And I feel like I've said this every single podcast for the last 5 podcasts that we talked about basketball or football. So I'm going to stop talking now. But basically, again, a lot of decision making doesn't make sense. A lot of the armchair quarterbacks in the IU fan base have said to do things that the staff has taken 3 games to do that they could have just done previously if you had looked or tried to diagnose the problems at all. The players, seem to be frustrated, just visibly on the field with how things are going. Like you said, Tom Allen sounds like in press conferences and I've seen him just like in interviews or whatever, just seem kind of down. Like, to me, it just seems like everybody just feels like they've been dealt a rough hand. And if that's true, then you just shake hands and move on, right? Just shake hands and move on.
We'll see. We'll see what happens here.
Also,
a few weeks coming up for
if you
Indiana.
can, if an anonymous person can donate $1 million to an NIL collective, an anonymous person can find enough money to help with the Tom Allen buyout.
It's a lot. It's a lot. I think the interesting variable here is what programs show interest in Tom Allen after December 1st, because Indiana's not going to voluntarily cut that tie. The interesting debate happens with the coordinators as far as what Indiana decides, what Scott Dolson decides after the season, and then of course what does Tom Allen choose to do. I think it's still absurd that Josh Henderson, after his great games against Cincinnati, Maryland, and Michigan, really hasn't been looked at in this offense. Jalen Lucas, they keep saying we have to give him the football more. He's getting 6-7 touches a game. I mean, it's like, you're trying to help your cause and you see these 3rd, 4th stringers preseason look really explosive. And the funny thing is, all the coaches told you that these players were good in the preseason, yet they're not seeing the field and they're not seeing the football. Makes sense of that. But anyway, folks, Indiana 3-7 and the losing streak continues.
One last thing on Indiana, because I've seen some people talk about Scott Dolson possibly being under fire for the football program. And I do think there's actually a little bit of something there. Again, you're an AD, you're actually kind of more of a business guy than you are, just a flat out sports guy, right? You got to make this program and this athletic program tick. Mm-hmm. And if football's not working, I'll tell you, it's very hard to succeed as an athletic program, right? Especially in Division I. So it's on Scott Dolson, because I think if another year of this Indiana football being below subpar garbage dumpster fire and changes aren't made, then there are going to be changes made at the head coaching program, and he's going to be in the hot seat. So a lot of people will go, oh, I wouldn't expect changes going into the summer. I'm on the opposite end of the table, because I think Dolson's going to look at this and he's going to see what he did to the basketball program. He's going, I'm going to want my guy. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I'm actually predicting there will be changes come December in the program, drastic ones. I don't know if that means Tom Allen gone. I don't know if that means an entire just reshuffling of the coaching staff, like assistants and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But I'm expecting something drastic to happen in December, because I don't think Scott Dolson's a guy that's just going to sit idly by and watch the program burn.
We'll see. My only thought there is Indiana for eternity has had a struggling football program, right? And so, that's where I would say, look, how different is this now compared to before? It is different. The landscape of college football is very different, right? And, you don't need to go through all the weeds and the details, but you have NIL now. You have massive TV deals now with USC and UCLA coming, and you revamp the whole thing. Big Ten football games won't be on ESPN and their family of networks anymore. You got the transfer portal being a larger and larger part of the scheme of the landscape nowadays. So it's different. The question is, how much does that play a role? We'll see here what happens for IU football over the next few weeks. A lot to decide here, including games somewhat winnable games against Michigan State and Purdue, at least compared to Penn State and Ohio State. We'll keep an eye out for that. Now it's time for Who Won the Week this past week in IU sports, folks. Before we go on to men's basketball, we have to give a shout out to current Tennessee Titans receiver Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. The former Hoosier went absolutely crazy for Tennessee against Denver on Sunday. 5 catches, 119 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The Indiana football program needs someone exactly like Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, who, again, spent his time in the IU football program, got better, undrafted, went to Tennessee, and has been a key cog in that Titans machine as they've consistently made the playoffs, and they look like they're on that track again this season. 2 touchdowns against a really tough defense in Denver. So shout out to Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, who put on a show in front of his home fans in Nashville. Folks, a reminder, if you'd like to subscribe to our podcast for free, all you have to do is search for the Hoosier Sound wherever you listen to podcasts. Stay up to date with all of our information by following us on Twitter at Indiana HQ and at the Hoosier Sound. If you enjoy our show, this part is important. Leave us a review, tell a friend, share our links. Your support really helps us grow this podcast and reach more passionate IU fans such as yourself. Guys, Indiana men's basketball is 2-0. The Hoosiers are up to number 12 in the AP poll. They're up to number 8 in the most up-to-date KenPom ratings. Indiana crushed Bethune-Cookman 101-49 in a total team effort on Thursday night. Charlie, it was excellent three-point shooting, excellent free throw shooting, wonderful ball movement. What stood out to you in Indiana's 52-point win that covered the spread by double digits on Thursday night?
I think something I've mentioned earlier about this basketball team in a previous podcast was whether or not Trayce Jackson-Davis should or should not be scoring more than 18 points a game. It was kind of, my answer was like, I don't think he should be scoring as much because I think that this team goes so deep that everybody else should have an opportunity to score. He doesn't need to be in all the time. And while I still think that remains true, like Jalen Hood-Schifino, played the most minutes like he has the past 2 exhibitions, I believe, and I think the last game too. Yep. He's gotten the most minutes, which is great. But we're still seeing Trayce Jackson-Davis come out on top by almost double digits in terms of scoring. 21 points, 6 rebounds. The second highest, I believe, was Miller Kopp at like,
I think you're right, yeah,
11, 12. So I see this win as it's great that Indiana's rolling, and they should be beating teams like Bethune-Cookman by this much if they want to see themselves in the top 10 AP poll, if they want to compete with North Carolina. That's all well and good. But Trayce Jackson-Davis, I'm scared that Indiana's going to become too attached. Yes, they're attached because he's one of the best players in the NCAA right now, in my opinion. But if this dependence on Trayce Jackson-Davis gets too far or gets too, I don't know, intense, and he's out for a game, say that game's UNC, and Indiana looks terrible and loses by the 21 points that Trayce Jackson-Davis brought to the table, it would be mighty unfortunate. So I see this as a win, but I also see a flaw in the distribution of the ball.
It's interesting to think about, Charlie, because one thing I did notice on Thursday night is Jackson, it wasn't like Indiana was force feeding it to Jackson-Davis. I feel like he commanded the basketball in the flow of the offense. Definitely interesting to see that. Yes, though, at the end of the day, he did have 9 more points than Miller Kopp as far as Indiana scorers are concerned. Folks, by the way, Indiana winning by 52 compared to the initial projection of 33, 34 points, that kind of stuff does matter at the end of the day as far as the computer metrics are concerned. Those advanced analytic systems that do play a role in your seeding do take into account how much better do you do compared to expected, even if it's against a quad 4 opponent. Matt, how about you? TJD did have 21. Your thoughts on his play, and then overall, what stood out to you in Indiana's big win?
I mean, which game is this we're talking about?
Bethune-Cookman.
Bethune-Cookman? So, yeah, Thursday game. So, yeah, I was there, which was awesome.
Yeah, you were.
And I felt like Trace didn't have to really do too much. A lot of Trace's baskets actually were off of defensive rebounds or offensive rebounds. Or just loose balls or whatever that ended up in his lap. There wasn't anything like they didn't run a ton of plays for him, in my opinion. There wasn't like they were trying to get him super involved, and he still had like 21 points in 20 minutes or something like that. So like he was still like super, super efficient. I think he only missed one shot. He was perfect on free throws. And like, yes, I get what you're saying, Charlie, about wanting to not be over reliant on Trace, but I think this team is good enough that I think they would have won this game comfortably and found 21 more points if he wasn't in this game. Like I think Renew, when he's out there, gives you the same thing. I think Geronimo, when he's out there, gives you a nice change of pace compared to Race Thompson. I think the guards, by the way, have taken a step up. And something I want to mention here is if Miller Kopp continues to shoot like this,
I was gonna say that. I was gonna say Kopp. Go ahead.
One, it's historic if he continues to shoot like this because he's had a heck of a start to the year.
5 of 6.
But
yeah.
2, it allows you to finally play him decent minutes because he's not a great defender. There were some grumbles in the crowd to start the game about his defense because again, he wasn't getting shots yet. I think he missed his first 3 in the corner to start the possession, and then I think he gave up maybe 3 or 4 buckets, and everybody's kind of sitting there grumbling, why is Kopp playing?
Right.
And then he started raining in threes. If he can continue to shoot like this, then it doesn't really matter if he's just a slight negative on defense. He's going to make up for that with his offense and his floor spacing and his gravity that he's going to attract on offense, which is fantastic because that gives this team the ability to work the inside more, whether it's Renew, whether it's Trace Jackson Davis, whether it's Race Thompson, right? On the inside, they're going to be able to get more space in there because of somebody like Kopp. Galloway's continue to shoot it well, which is a very good sign coming off the bench. And then I really think Tamar Bates gives them really good minutes as well. So again, I think the 9 we've noticed they're going to 9. The IU is playing 9 main guys. It's
in the
starting
first
5.
Half, yes.
Yeah, starting 5, and then it's going to be 4. And that's what I would assume to see against Xavier, unless we blow them out like Bethune-Cookman. And then I'm going to be like over the moon about this team if we see CJ Gunn and Caleb Banks and the rest of the crew in garbage time against Xavier in the Cintas Center. But again, I would expect the rotation is 9. The 4 guys off the bench are Galloway, Tamar Bates, Geronimo, and Renew. And again, the freshman looks so good. Renew hit a 3 in transition,
so good,
which made me literally fall out of my chair in the press row. Like if you don't know, if you've never been to the IU's press row, they're kind of like in like swivel seats.
Yes.
And the guy next to me, I like went to like put my hand on him to be like, oh my God, because you're kind of like rooting for IU, like low key in the back.
What? No,
but he moved the other way, and so then I was kind of leaning, and then he wasn't there, so then I just fell out of my chair. So he literally made me fall out of my chair in press row. So again, like the freshmen are so much further along than I thought. And so again, we had the poll, right? Which we'll talk about, but I'll leak my answer to the poll, which was
let's go into it right now.
Yeah, I think they're ahead of schedule. Like I think they are better than what I thought they were going to be coming to this year because I didn't expect to see this from Renew. I didn't expect to see the shooting jump from Galloway. Like I think Jalen Hood-Schifino. I've gone in a 5-minute rant here without even mentioning him.
He is outstanding, man.
Outstanding with the ball and decision making for a freshman, and that's going to translate to every single game this season. Because if he can continue to make good decisions with the ball, it doesn't matter if he's 0 of 5 from 3 like he was against Bethune-Cookman.
And he's got to figure it out, right? Like work on it right now, not in the Big Ten season.
Yeah, he's going to work on it right now, of course. But to me, he still gets very good playing time, and he's still a factor because one, he's hit from very, very long twos. Like he's actually shooting that at a fairly high percentage. So you still have to guard him, further out than the baseline. And then also, like his decision making with the ball, you have to press him if your defense is, because if he can see the floor and see space, he's going to pick you apart. And it's that kind of passing that allows this team to, even if they're not having a great shooting night, still be effective on offense and still get out in transition and still share the ball. Because again, I think Bob Knight said this, and so a lot of the old heads that are listening to this are going to understand this. But you don't need to shoot the basketball well if you pass the basketball well, and I think that is what this team does extremely well. And so again, like passing the ball, Trace being great, the depth, the freshmen, people actually finding a shot. Like this team for me is ahead of schedule where I thought they were going to be.
I agree as well. Charlie, as far as where this team is for you compared to the start of the season, the expectation, of course, it's only 4 games, but has Indiana looked better than, worse than, or the same as you expected compared to that beginning of the season expectation?
I believe I said that their ranking of top 15 was overrated.
Yeah.
I'd like to retract that because wow.
Yeah.
I watched college basketball a lot last year. I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I definitely watched it. It's on the TV. I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna watch a game. I have never seen a team that is so consistently deep. It's incredible to me. We talked about Jalen Hood-Schifino handling the ball, but then you throw in Trey Galloway to handle the ball, and it's the command is different. There's definitely a shift when the second rotation comes on, but they're still getting the job done as efficiently as possible. I don't think that IU is going to stay outside of the top 10 for very long. I don't foresee that happening. They, compared to other teams I've seen around the NCAA, the AP top 25, they are destroying people like nobody else is. And ruthlessly. Mike Woodson does not care what the score is. And I think that's amazing because there's a functional thing. There's sportsmanship, and then there's putting your bench players in, giving them minutes. And what can you do except tell them not to play well when your bench players are almost arguably as good as your starters? It's a lose-lose. Well, it's a win-win.
Can we argue about that for just a second? Is Indiana's bench just as good as the starting? Like in all seriousness, does Mike Woodson need to maybe reconsider tweaking some of the minutes here? I think the three guys people are talking about are Race Thompson, Miller Kopp, and Xavier Johnson. Matt, does Indiana need to slide some of those minutes over to Renew, to Tamar Bates, to Trey Galloway, because those guys especially have been really, really impressive to start this year?
No,
not yet.
Not yet. And here's why. Again, you run with the experience. Again,
okay.
Let's wait and see how the freshmen look, like in the Cintas Center on Friday and away from home.
Sure.
When the crowd isn't, being super quiet on offense and being loud on defense. It's reversed, right? Let's see. And there's a lot more pressure, a lot more eyes on you, right? Like let's wait and see kind of how they play. I have a feeling they're going to play the same. In fact, I'll go on a limb and guarantee it, because again, they play on that high level AAU, that prep ball circuit for Florida. These guys have been in big games before in front of crowds, and they've had ton of expectations before. This is not going to weigh on them too much. There might be a little bit of butterflies or whatever. You might see them when they first come in, but I think they'll settle in quickly. But to me, like what I'm looking for on Friday, and as far as the bench unit goes, is can Galloway continue to shoot?
Yeah.
Because again, what he offers you on the defensive end is infinitely more than Kopp.
Sure.
Right. And so again, I'm sitting there kind of like, if you're going to offer more on the defensive end and you're going to be an able shooter, like I don't know why he shouldn't be in the starting lineup. Geronimo, if he continues to shoot well and do everything well, and Race Thompson starts to
effort and energy,
effort and his rebounding
takes nothing for granted.
Right. If he continues to play like that, I don't know why there shouldn't be discussion about Race Thompson. And honestly, if you're going to add in anybody else, like adding possibly Renew into the conversation, for Race Thompson as well is great. But I don't think Xavier Johnson's ever going to leave the starting lineup. And again, it's kind of like at the end of the day, these guys like Xavier Johnson was like what, an 18-point game
Yeah.
for scorer towards the end of the year,
Yeah.
and like
It was like
Race
16,
Thompson's
but yeah.
He's 16, but he was averaging like 18 in the
Mhm.
tournament or whatever. And he's 16 point, Race Thompson is a fantastic glue guy. Like these guys are instrumental to the team. So whether they start or not, I don't think really matters. But I do think that you should start to even out the minutes a little bit more in the middle of the game because a lot of these guys can add so much to the game. One and two, you get your starters, your older guys rest. And then they're a lot fresher towards the end of the game. They can make some more athletic, more controlled plays when their body isn't totally and utterly fatigued because they're playing 36 minutes. So
Exactly. Yeah. Indiana, very much to me as well, has exceeded expectations through 4 games this season, 2 exhibition, 2 regular season. That's exactly what we asked all of you, as Matt referenced on our weekly podcast poll over at The Hoosier Sound. Make sure you cast your vote if you haven't already. A bunch of people have here in the very few moments that this poll has been up. Our question to you: has Indiana looked better, worse, or the same as you expected compared to the start of the season? It's a dead heat right now, folks. 52% say better, 46% say same. So generally, Indiana's met or exceeded expectations as far as Hoosier Nation. There are 2% of voters thus far that have said Indiana's looked worse than expected. We'll see. We'll see what kind of personalities and fandoms those people have. I don't know. Hey, look, it's your vote. Don't let me get in your way. Indiana very much has looked awesome through 2 games, especially in the regular season. Ball movement, the 3-point shooting has been wonderful to see. Trey Galloway hit 2 in a span of like 90 seconds on Thursday night, and he had 6 total in each. I should say 6 threes in each of his first 2 seasons. You really do see the mechanical improvements there, and we haven't even gotten much extended run for CJ Gunn or Caleb Banks, especially in regular season games. As far as the first half is concerned, Caleb Banks has put together at least 5 points in each of his first 2 games, but just not seeing time right now in the first half. You know he's going to be a critical figure for IU in the years to come. And of course, if something happens injury related, Woodson will call on Banks and Gunn to step in for the Hoosiers. Let's talk about Xavier, folks. Indiana heads to the Cintas Center in Cincinnati on Friday night at 6 p.m. Eastern tip on FS1. It's Indiana's first true road game of the year, and it's going to be Indiana's first close game of the year in all likelihood. Xavier is receiving votes in the AP poll. They are currently the 38th rated team in the Ken Pom ratings. They do play Fairfield on Tuesday night before they take on the Hoosiers, something to keep an eye out for just in case any injuries or things like that take place. Ken Pom has it 73-71 in favor of Indiana on Friday night. Xavier was picked to finish second in the preseason in the Big East behind Creighton, ahead of Villanova, for example. Villanova off to a rough start this season. They're struggling tonight as we are recording at home to, I believe, Delaware State. Sean Miller is Xavier's head coach. It's his second stint at Xavier, but it's his first season in the second stint. Xavier's off to a 2-0 start, but they've struggled as far as rebounding is concerned. In their second game of the season against Montana, both the Grizzlies and the Musketeers had the same number of rebounds. Montana especially found success on the offensive glass off their missed shots, something to think about there. For what it's worth, watch out though, Xavier has made 46.4% from 3, although they don't take too many. Jack Nungy and Colby Jones are preseason All Big East. Zach Fremantle is a glue guy forward who leads the team at 16 points per game. Adam Kunkel comes off the bench as a 3-point threat. And old friend Jerome Hunter comes off the bench for Xavier as well, the Indiana transfer. Charlie, as you look at this game, a lot of different aspects in play. We don't have a Vegas spread for this game yet. However, it should be a close one. Xavier hitting their threes right now, but struggling on the glass.
I am scared for Indiana or for Xavier's 3-point percentage. You said they don't take that many, but 46%, you said 46%. That's a lot of percent. Especially as I see it, Indiana's one of their weak points in these first 4 contests. They're playing teams that aren't that great, but the amount of threes they're allowing these teams to get off is in a very high volume, which is concerning because there's one argument that's, well, these teams aren't great. If they get a 3 here, we'll just go down, get an automatic 2, stop them, get an automatic 2, just kind of like bank on them only making 20% of their shots. But you can't do that when you step up against teams that are really good. I'm not saying Xavier is one of those teams, but with the 46% from 3, it seems like they could be. And if they show out and kill Indiana's momentum, I don't think I use a momentum team like I talked about with the football team in the beginning. We kind of saw, when things are good, they're good. When they're bad, they're bad. We haven't seen IU in a tough spot yet. I think that we'll see them there going into halftime of this game for sure. But back to that 3-point percentage, I think that it's something that if I'm Mike Woodson, it's something that I'm paying attention to. Maybe working with Miller Kopp specifically on his defense. Like we talked about, he might be a weak point. If he's guarding somebody that's not afraid to shoot the 3 ball, you might look at putting somebody else in. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, man, a couple of their guards, Sule Bohm and Kai Tandy, have combined for 11 of, 14? Excuse me, 9 of 14 from 3. Those are 2 starters we didn't talk about. Bohm, a long, rangy sort of 6'3", 6'4" guard. Tandy is 6'2", starting guard for the Musketeers as well. Who are 1 or 2 Hoosiers you're looking to step up here to take advantage of Xavier's weaknesses?
I mean, obviously the front line has to take advantage, right? Trace has to be the best player on the court. Race Thompson needs to have Race Thompson had like bad games. He needs to be more focused, I think, in this game. He's got to be locked in from the minute 1. I was talking with Ant Wright, and he was saying, like through the first 2 games, like Race looks like he's just going through the motions. Like, you just can't just go through the motions playing against Xavier. Right? Like they're gonna be ready to go. They're playing at home. They're gonna be pumped up. I use ranked number 11 in the AP poll.
12.
Right? 12? I thought it was 11. The new one were 11, I think, as of today. We're 11 because Tennessee lost and they were ahead of us.
My bad. All right, keep going.
Yeah, there you go. Number 11 in the AP poll. And so again, they're going to be pumped up to play us. And so I'm sitting here kind of like, he can't come out and play like he did against the last 2 teams. Like, I don't think he will. I think he's a senior. He's a leader. He's not going to do that. If he can hit a 3 or so in the game, that'd be great. That don't take too many, right? But if he can, put that on tape, that'd be awesome as well. But last but not least, I think Geronimo has to get a lot of playing time this game. I think his ability to switch and defend multiple positions. I think his ability to rebound the ball. Again, we just talked about how, they look kind of sus, Xavier, on rebounding the ball, right? Like if we can take advantage of that, we have really good post players. Like you don't want to give Trace too many touches inside the post. And if you can continue to get secondary looks at the basket, like Trace is going to make more of those than he's going to miss. And so again, offensively, try to rebound the ball, and then defensively, I'm looking at the guards and mainly, our most switchable wings like Geronimo and Race Thompson to, kind of help out the most this game defensively.
Yeah, we are 12th. I had to double check, but even after the most recent poll, Indiana moved up a spot from 13 to 12.
Oh, we were 13 to 12.
We were 13.
Sorry, my bad.
Now it's 12. No, it's all good. No worries there. We definitely want to get the AP ranking right. It's been a while since Indiana's been in the top 25 before the start of the season.
I said number 11 because Indiana, the women's team, who I'm watching currently, is playing number 11 Tennessee, and my brain, my bad.
And Indiana's women's team was number 11 last week, and now they slid a spot to 12. And folks, as Matt did reference, Indiana's up on Tennessee in a true road game here through 3 quarters. That would be a huge win for Terry Morin's squad. Not sure if we'll still be recording when that game wraps up. I totally agree with a lot of what you guys have said. I think Miller Kopp will be an interesting figure in this game. I do very much see Race Thompson putting up his best performance of the early season against Xavier. My one pick to click that we haven't really discussed yet is Tamar Bates. And I think Indiana in this game will have an advantage, as they will in almost every game this season from a depth standpoint. A couple of bench guards have gone off, relatively speaking, against Xavier through the first 2 games. I'm also curious to see what Fairfield does against Xavier on Tuesday night. But if that trend holds true, I'm taking that as a good sign for Tamar Bates, in addition to just his own elevated level of play. I think, Matt, your point there with Race Thompson maybe losing a little bit of focus here and there, that's not been the case with Tamar Bates. He's been locked in on an every possession basis. And if that's the case, and if it's a guard and Adam Kunkel who's guarding him off the bench, and maybe Kunkel's got a few defensive weaknesses, Bates could really use that 5-star ability to his benefit and put up, I'm not saying he's going to score 30, but, put up a double-figure scoring game, help Indiana perhaps maybe come back from an early deficit or expand upon an early lead. So I can see Tamar Bates, in addition to Race Thompson especially, standing out here in this matchup. We're going to give our predictions in just a moment. First, it's time for our social media shout out. And we had to pay attention to the NCAA men's soccer tournament bracket release earlier on this Monday afternoon, where the Indiana men's soccer program was granted a number 13 national seed, keeping the good vibes rolling for the IU athletic department. The Hoosiers get that first round bye and will face the winners St. Louis and Memphis on Sunday at Bill Armstrong Stadium in Bloomington. The Hoosiers had a wonderful Big Ten tournament. They did fall just short in the Big Ten championship game against Rutgers. However, the Hoosiers did go to Maryland and win a big-time Big Ten semifinal matchup there. So the Hoosiers playing some good soccer here at the end of the season. Looking forward to seeing Todd Yeagley and his crew do some damage here in the NCAA men's soccer tournament. The Hoosiers will try to raise another banner. I believe they're 9th, the Q49, the quest for a 9th star, as Indiana embarks on their NCAA men's soccer tournament journey. Folks, a reminder, if you have not followed us yet, make sure you do so by finding us on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube at Indiana HQ, as well as at The Hoosier Sound. On Instagram, Matt, we're not Indiana HQ, but what are we?
Indiana.HQ.
Exactly. That's what we are there. You can find us on Instagram and follow us. We just mentioned last week crossed the 1,000 follower threshold on Instagram, so make sure you join the masses if you have not just yet. Charlie, a couple questions to wrap up here with this massive Xavier showdown coming up on Friday. True road game. I'm just curious to hear from your standpoint. Looking at this from a full season perspective, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being just another game on the schedule, or 10, really critical, borderline must win, how important is this game for Indiana in the grand scheme of this 2022-23 basketball season?
I'm going to rate this as a 7. I think that it's the first challenge IU has had, and the reason it's not a 10, I would have said 10. The reason it's not a 10 is because it's the first challenge that IU has. So this is likely a learning experience, a learning curve for a lot of the freshmen, even Tamar Bates. We have some underclassmen that still haven't gotten minutes. So it's just, I think it's important. It's super important that IU shows the rest of the NCAA community what they're capable of, that this year is not a fluke. Their ranking was deserved and maybe undercut a little bit. So I think in terms of looking forward at the whole season, I think that if IU wins this and ends up getting a really good ranking down the road, they'll look back and I think that this is going to be what started it all. So I think that the rest of the season starts with Xavier. And if IU doesn't get it done, it's likely that they drop out. No, I don't know, drop out, but definitely drop farther down, pretty far down. Yeah, on the brink of not being in the AP top poll. And they have another opportunity against UNC. That's why I'm ranking it a 7, because there's always that chance to get a couple like smaller wins under your belt after Xavier, and then come out and possibly beat USC or UNC. My apologies. Possibly beat UNC and redeem yourself. There's always that opportunity. I'm going to rank this as a 7. I would have said 10, but it's the first one, so I'll let it slide.
Sounds good, Matt. What are your thoughts there? 1 to 10. How important is this game for Indiana in the grand scheme of things?
A 9, because this is one of the most winnable,
Sure.
or this will be the easiest of the big non-conference games. Yeah, it's away from home. Arizona is going to be tougher in neutral court in Las Vegas, and then you have away at Kansas is probably the hardest up there with UNC at home, right? So it's the most winnable of the big four non-conference games, and you got to get these non-conference wins. You got to get one or two of them. If you're going to want to stay relevant nationally, hopefully they get more than that, but you got to get at least, I think, in my opinion, at least two. So again, if you're not going to win this one, you put a lot of pressure on the next three to get two out of the next three. So I think it's very important to get out to a good start here. Again, I don't think Xavier's had the best of starts, honestly, in my opinion. When you if you've watched any of their game footage, it's kind of, yeah, they're shooting the ball really well, but it's all in like extremely open looks. Their guards aren't making a lot of tough layups. You can get, you kind of out muscle, you can out tough them. So again, if IU can go out there and show that they want it more, I think that this game can be theirs. So, I think this is very important, and it'll set the tone for the rest of the season. So, yeah, it's their first test, so you want to kind of give them a little bit of a break. But honestly, like it sets the tone, right? It's because it's the first one. So if they can go out there and set a good tone, all of a sudden, I think they can go out there and have the confidence to go into Allen Fieldhouse and keep up with Kansas. They can have the confidence at home during a whiteout against UNC to, take over and beat the #1 team in the country. Like, I think, again, it's this game is so much more important than just playing Xavier on the schedule.
Makes total sense. For what it's worth, folks, if you do want to look at it from a KenPom perspective, Indiana's best win probability, highest win probability among the four big non-conference games on their schedule is actually the home contest against North Carolina, because it's at home. And the computer metrics do give Assembly Hall a good bump as far as the home court advantage. Indiana's projected to beat North Carolina 75-71 in the KenPom metrics. The toughest one is that road trip to Kansas. And so that's an interesting perspective. We can argue about this forever. I very much do think of the four teams, you obviously, Xavier is the one that's not in the top 25. Xavier is the one that's a little bit further down in the KenPom ratings, being 38th compared to a top 20. I'm gonna turn the volume down, the intensity down just a little bit. I got this as a 5. I understand that there are a lot of important consequences coming out of this game, but regardless, it's one that you are playing here in the middle of November. All right. And so I'm sitting here and saying, look, there are bigger fish to fry that'll come later down the road. Indiana's going to learn from this game no matter what the result is. And because of that reason, I'm saying, look, let's play this out. Let's see what the result is. Grand scheme of things here, this game's going to be played on November 18th, not March 18th or February 18th. So at the end of the day, that's how I look at it. No matter what, though, I can guarantee you I'm very much looking forward to seeing how Indiana does on Friday night. And I know most of you, if not all of you, are expecting the Hoosiers to come out with a victory. So, Charlie, I'm going to ask you, it's that time. Indiana is projected to win, according to the KenPom ratings, 73-71. There should be a good tempo to this game. It should be free-flowing, maybe not rocket speed by any means, but should have a good pace to it. It's a couple teams that match up pretty similarly, not taking too many threes, at least thus far this season. Who do you think wins this game, Charlie, and by how much?
I'm going IU 73-56.
Ooh, Indiana goes into Xavier and whoops them. You want to talk about that a little bit? Do you think Indiana's going to really just get out to a great start and dominate from there?
I don't. I think Indiana's going to struggle. Like I said, I think they're going to go into that halftime locker room potentially down. I really do. But I see the second half. When IU, we've seen it, when they're hot, they're hot. I think it's just going to be that end of game separation that's kind of going to inflate the score a little bit. I do think it's going to be a close game, but Again, 73, 56, 17 points. It seems like a lot. But when you look at it and you're up by 10 with 2 minutes left and the other team just starts, taking shots that aren't going in, you kind of get fouled a little bit and work your way up to 17-point lead. I say IU pulls it off.
Matt, how about you?
I think this game is close the whole way through. I think, it being our first away win, guys are going to be kind of nervous, kind of off to begin with. So I think maybe a little bit of a slow start from IU. Then they'll start to feel it, start getting going. And then, then it's up to us to make shots. So I think it's close all the way through. I still think Indiana wins it. I think they'll win it by 4. I'm going to say 73-69. IU wins.
Nail biter. I think Indiana wins also. I do think it's going to be lower scoring. I think Indiana's going to win the 69-64. I think Indiana's going to have to fight through some stuff, especially with it being the first true road game. I still though see the bench at the end of the day overwhelming Xavier over the course of 40 minutes. Again, when Indiana has 9 potential starters, and we don't even talk really about CJ Gunner, Caleb Banks. I mean, it's tough for any team to game plan for. And what's interesting here is Sean Miller theoretically has to focus on Fairfield first, whereas Indiana staff has basically a full week to prepare for the Musketeers. I think for that reason, Indiana fights through some stuff, but ends up coming out on top 69-64 again. We talked about some of those key players, Race Thompson, Trace Jackson Davis, Miller, Kopp, Tamar Bates, all getting a hat tip as far as players to step up for the Hoosiers. Charlie, as we wind down here, big moment in time as far as the Indiana athletic scene is concerned. It's just a flat out awesome time of the year. What are your final thoughts as we wind down here on this Monday night?
IU football has to put trust in Dexter Williams for the next 2 games. And I'm excited. I'm actually more excited than I was to watch Ohio State or Penn State play Ohio. I am so excited to watch Dexter Williams get out on the field against not top 25 teams. Well, Illinois. Well, hold on. Purdue. Not top 20. No. Yeah, not top 25 teams. So I'm super excited to see what he can do. He's got some wheels. He's got an arm. That'll be exciting. Maybe we see snippets of players that Tom Allen didn't trust earlier in the season and is now putting in because he can, because their season's over. IU basketball, I'm very excited to see how they fare up against Xavier. Honestly, I know my prediction was very, very bold, but I have faith in this Indiana team. I don't know if I should put all that faith in their defense. I'm now realizing 56 points is not a lot of points.
I don't know. IU looks pretty good from defense.
That's
like it's not the worst take. That's not the worst take.
So we'll see what happens. And I think IU is going to come. I feel that IU is going to come out on top. I don't think I feel. I feel.
Matt, how about you? Take us home.
Football. I know I will begrudgingly watch them.
People are paying attention. They just are.
They are, but
Respect.
For all, again, I think for some not great reasons. And so again, I'm gonna sit there, I'll watch it, but I'm not gonna enjoy it. I think we'll end up losing to Michigan State. And basketball's fun. I'll be at the game on Friday. Probably standing in the back in a corner behind a pole, but I will be there. I like a big road game, biggest game of the year so far. Duh. And kind of like I'm sitting here like if the team really wants to do what they want to do and play how they want to play, and like I said, their goal was to win a national championship this year. It's got to start with the Xavier game, right? They got to go out there and show that they have that killer instinct. So let's go and see it.
Let's go and see it. And I mean, folks, I don't know if you paid attention to the rest of the Big Ten as far as men's basketball is concerned. It's been a little shaky. Rutgers skating by UMass Lowell, Michigan.
No, wait.
No, what?
No, No, it has
What?
not been shaky.
It
It has not
has.
been shaky. No.
How much time do you have?
No. We got a lot of time, but Big Ten is 28-1, and the only loss the Big Ten has so
Okay.
far this year is to Gonzaga outside in San Diego on a battleship. Okay, and
Right.
Michigan State lost to them in an extremely close game. They had a last shot to win the game. So again, yes, some of the programs of the Big Ten haven't looked great against non-conference opponents.
That's what I'm
But
saying.
you can go around and look at every other. Go look at the Pac-12. Go look at the Big East.
Yeah,
Go
no.
look at
I
the
don't care about the
SEC.
other conferences. You know who hasn't looked bad? Indiana. And this is my point.
Yeah. Okay. Go,
It's
continue.
exactly
But all
my
I'm saying is the
point.
Big Ten hasn't. The Big Ten
I don't
actually
care
has
about
looked better. The Big Ten, but the
Sure.
Big Ten's actually looked better than a lot of people thought preseason. So
Sure,
I just want to point that out.
that makes sense. And I agree. The Big Ten has looked better than other conferences. I do agree with that. But you look at the way Michigan had to fight through Imani Bates and Eastern Michigan on Friday night. You look at the score right now.
Did you guys watch that game?
I did. It was an exceptional basketball game.
Yeah.
40 minutes worth of just insane stuff. You look at Minnesota down by quite a bit against DePaul at home. You look at Rutgers fighting by UMass Lowell. We talk about how Purdue only scored 63 against Austin Peay back on Friday night. And I'm sitting here and saying, we might just be looking at an Indiana men's basketball program that kind of, we'll see how this goes, but kind of rams right through the Big Ten bull in a china shop style and finishes the year something like 16-4, 17-3 in Big Ten play. I don't think that's out of the question here for this Hoosiers team, health permitting, because based even judging on the curve of the degree of the opposition, the difficulty of the opposition, this basketball looks really, really impressive right now. Can't wait to see the Hoosiers take the court on Friday night at Xavier, and then, of course, a couple of days later, Sunday night in Indianapolis against Miami of Ohio. But folks, that about wraps it up for our 272nd show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support. To hear more fantastic episodes like the one you heard today, be sure to follow us at Indiana HQ, as well as at the Hoosier Sound, to make sure you find everything all in one place. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we will see you next time.
Go IU women's basketball beat Tennessee.
Yeah.